Hey guys, it's me Lex here. This is a tea video. This video will contain spoilers for the wedding episode. If you have not watched through episode 12, definitely don't watch this video because we will be discussing things that happened there. Thanks so much, and let's strap in and spill some tea. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lex, and before we begin, I would absolutely love it if you are old here, if you are new here, if you would consider liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Suss out the vibes, watch the videos, make that determination. But just know it does help get my videos out there. It inspires me to keep creating, and it lets me know you guys like the content. Today, we are going to do another kind of tea roundup. This is also basically going to be the episode 12 wedding episode recap. I'm gonna be honest, there's nothing to talk about. I'm not gonna sit down and record a full recap for that. So I'm just gonna talk about it here. As I stated in the disclaimer in the beginning, if you have not watched episode 12, probably do not watch this. But let's jump into it first, really quickly what happened in episode 12, and then we will actually get into the tea because the tea is very relevant. So Tyler and Ashley, they get married. Tyler and Ashley every single minute during their wedding talked about when they have kids, when they have kids, when they have kids, when they have kids. And it was kind of gut-wrenching to watch. I think this is sociopathic behavior from Tyler in particular, knowing he has children that he abandoned, and he is talking about with a brand new woman, when we have kids, when we have kids, when we have kids. It is not it. It is not it. Didn't love it. That's literally all I have to say about that. Garrett and Taylor get married. We finally get to see the infamous Mr. Krause, Taylor's dad, on the screen. Him and Garrett had a really nice, heartwarming scene where they did bond. He helps him tie his bow tie. Her family is extremely supportive. They do get married. Garrett's mom is still a little apprehensive. It's a little interesting, I'm gonna be honest. But overall, they get married. Everything is fine. Boom. Then we have the stars of the show, Marissa and Ramses, okay? We start off in the beginning at this little whatever the two of them had going on. They go back and forth for a really long time, and Ramses essentially says, look, I talked with my niece and my cousin and his mom or something, I don't know. He talked with some family. And he found out that his ex was more upset after the divorce than he originally thought, which I thought was very weird to bring up. I'm sorry, but why are we bringing up our ex? Your ex. Why are you bringing up your ex, sir? Nope. Then after that, he proceeds to say that he doesn't think that he can live with Marissa because her energy is too bubbly, too much for him. And he's not sure that on a day-to-day basis, he can handle her energy. I hated Ramses in this episode. Because here's the thing that frustrated me. Ramses knew he was not going to be with Marissa. And it's not because of her energy. It's because you guys obviously have different views on things. On birth control, on the military. You guys probably have other political views that are not the same. And Ramses frustrated me because he strung this girl along knowing he was not going to marry her. We all knew Ramses was not going to marry Marissa from literally episode 2 or 3, whatever. Was it episode 4 where they have that military conversation? We knew they weren't gonna get married. So it frustrates me that Ramses is playing in her face, like this, because it's like she was really under the impression they were gonna get married. And Ramses is the kind of person where you have to pry out of him what he wants to say. We saw in these conversations, he would just make a series of faces. Make this series of faces rather than actually talking. I hated it for Marissa, the way she was crying. It was awful. But Marissa did do an interview with Vulture where she talked a little bit more about what actually happened after the breakup, and that is kind of what I wanted to get into first. So Marissa's mom spoke to Ramses off camera after that Love is Blind scene. And of course, if you want to read this full article by yourself, I will put it in the comments, a link to it so you can check it out yourself. I'll just read through the parts that are interesting here. So let's just jump right into it. She said, the first question is, what caused your breakup? Did it stem from a bigger conversation or did Ramses bring it up out of the blue? Marissa says, I was pretty blindsided by the level of doubt and uncertainty he felt. Before that, our hardest day was us talking about a conversation he had with a family friend about how his last marriage ended and how his ex-wife had taken it. When that was brought to my attention, I had a feeling it was going to lead to some issue, but I didn't think we were going to break up. I just thought, okay, he's feeling really sad about this. He feels things very deeply. And let me just say, Ramses was not ready for another marriage. If you take it that heavily, learning that your ex was so depressed after the divorce 4 or 5 years later, you're not ready. I don't give a F about my ex's feelings. Sorry. Like, I'm just being honest. I would never get into another relationship if I was so heartbroken and triggered by how my ex felt. This man should have never came on this experiment. As Marissa said in the conversation, never should have came on this experiment. You're not ready. Anyway, so the lead up to this conversation, I was like, hey, something's off. I feel like that's very typical of a man and a woman in a relationship. The man starts acting differently, and I have to come in and say, hey, what's the deal? Then he was like, yeah, I'm having doubts. I don't know if he was ever going to bring it up otherwise. What did I say? You have to prod things out of Ramses. I feel like that was so clear watching the show. All right, let's keep going. So it says, who were you able to meet from Ramses' circle? We didn't see any of that on screen. So she said, I met his mom through FaceTime and she was lovely. She was beautiful and very nice. I met his brother and his niece, and then I met his closest friend David, who was at the tux fitting. And I also met two of his close girlfriends, girls that are friends, not ex-girlfriends. Those meetings went really well. They talked a lot about how, yes, they noticed the difference in our energy, but they thought it was complementary. And Ramses was so sure until he wasn't, right? It didn't seem like any of his friends asked him that. I think his brother might have, but that was the day before the breakup. And then the next part says, that's so jarring. She responded, it was so jarring. I'm not going to lie. Had he told me throughout the process, oh yeah, I love you, babe, but there are some things we need to figure out before I move on, that would have helped with the breakup. But when someone's looking you in the face every day, multiple times a day, saying I'm 100% in, it's jarring to hear all of a sudden. Not only do I no longer want to get married to you, I don't want to date you anymore. I don't want to do anything anymore. At that point, you feel like your world's upside down. You're like, am I freaking crazy? And again, I'm going to say this. I don't think that Ramses and Marissa should have been together, for the record, because y'all never seem to understand that I am not, like, I'm not necessarily rooting for any of these couples. These are people I don't really know. I'm watching this show for entertainment value at the end of the day. I don't care if Ramses and Marissa are together. And obviously we saw these two are a mismatch. However, I just do not agree when someone continuously strings someone along, knowing very well they are not going to be that person, knowing very well that they are not ready. Why would you come on a marriage show if you knew you were not healed from your last marriage? Like, I'm sorry, but like, I feel like that's very selfish and unfair to do to somebody else. So anyway, as a viewer, that conversation highlighted a lot of moments in retrospect, like when you'd bring up wedding planning and he'd seem apathetic. Did the breakup recontextualize anything you might have initially brushed aside? She said, yeah, as I watched it back, I could definitely see Ramses slipping away. I could tell in his lack of enthusiasm. Initially, he was like, I want to be all involved. And then toward the end, I was doing everything. And it wasn't like I had all this free time to do it, but I was like, if I don't do it, who's going to? He wasn't answering wedding planning emails, so I was like, okay, well, I guess while I'm in class, I'll sit here and go through my emails and figure stuff out and figure things out. In the moment, I brushed things aside because I took him at face value. I'm saying, hey, if you have any doubts, let's talk about it. If you do, that's okay. It's not going to end in us breaking up, but we could talk about it. And if he's saying no doubts, no doubts, no doubts, then what am I supposed to do? Look at him and say, well, you're lying? I guess you could have said, in hindsight, well, I know you're saying you have no doubts, but you're not really showing up in this way. But I'm also thinking, this is part of the experiment. He's overwhelmed and stressed by filming all the moving pieces. I just felt like I needed to step up to help him there. Next question says, after the breakup, you called your mom to talk through it. What did she say to you when you told her the wedding was off? She said, she was actually pretty devastated for me just because I was devastated. When I called her, she was about an hour away from me and Ramses because the wedding was in a couple of days and she was driving up to stay the night. This man was going to reject her at the altar. Had she not prodded it out at him, like we saw in that conversation on TV, she was literally, or he was literally going to literally reject her at the altar. Sorry, I just had a brain fart for some reason. He was going to reject her at the altar. Oh my God. That's awful. You knew her mom was coming. That's awful. That's awful. Okay, her initial response was, all right, so let me talk to him. And I was like, no, you're going to friggin' bitch him out. But in actuality, she went and privately spoke to him off camera saying, please don't do this to my daughter. You guys clearly do love each other. What is going on? Just trying to get him to see reason. That it's scary, but we could do this. Her response was actually a lot different than I thought it would be. Wow. All right. So this says, so to confirm, that breakup was a complete split, not just postponing the wedding. She said it was a complete split. I gave him the option because he kept saying, I love you. I want to be with you. My heart wants to be with you, but I have to be logical here. I can't follow my emotions. I was like, okay, let's be logical. We don't have to do the marriage. We could just stay engaged, or we don't have to stay engaged. We could just date. And I didn't really want to break up, to be honest, but I was willing to meet him at a place where he was never willing to meet me. He'd already made his decision. I really had no say in this breakup. Ooh. Okay, this lack of room for discussion does make me think of Ramses' seemingly uncompromising opposition to rubbers. What did you make of that resistance, and were you eventually able to find some kind of resolution? So she said, we decided to keep doing what we were doing, which was I tracked my menstrual cycle, and we made sure during my ovulation time that we were careful, either using a rubber or abstaining. We did talk about vasectomy. He actually was like, whoa, I need to think about that. Most men don't have to think about that. It kind of addressed this privilege that he never needed to think about it. I knew it was bad at the time, but looking at it from the rear view, I literally said either wear a rubber or accept the consequences. And he didn't want to do either. Looking back, I'm like, okay, if I ended up pregnant, would it be my fault? No, sis. It takes two to tango. And at the end of the day, if you're gonna blast in someone unprotected, then it's his fault just as much as it's your fault. Anyway, would he have said, well, I told you that I didn't want to have kids? I don't know. Oh, Lord. From what we've seen, it looked like you were left in an impossible situation. She said it did, right? Like, we still didn't use rubbers. And again, that was because I was willing to accept the consequences of not using protection. I was naive in that sense. Now that I'm working on some of my people-pleasing, compromising tendencies, I would have said, well, if you aren't willing to have a child in the next year, then we will use rubbers or we won't be having intercourse. What did your friends say when you told them you and Ramses had broken up? She basically just says her friends were livid. They had no idea. They felt upset that, like, he allowed himself to even come in front of them as a potential future husband, basically knowing that he wasn't going to do it. And then lastly, the last question says, this is one of the most painful breakups. How did you heal yourself? She said it's probably the most heartbroken she's ever felt. She doesn't recall much of the 2 days. She cried a lot. She couldn't speak. She said she didn't want to exist. Damn, girl. It made her question everything she worked on in therapy. She said it took her probably about 6 months to feel like somewhat of a normal person. She said she was drinking a lot. She was going out a lot and she was reckless. She went to therapy and then surrounded herself with friends and family. And you know what? We can kiki and like people, I feel like we're kind of making fun of Marissa. But at the end of the day, I feel like if you've been in that spot, which I definitely have been in the spot like that with a breakup, where it's like you literally feel like your whole world has been crushed, especially when the person is not forthcoming, when you have that feeling in the pit of your heart, but you ask them and ask them and ask them and they lie to you and they string you along and then it's like it's all dropped on you. It is an awful feeling. So I really empathize. I actually, like, during that scene, like, low-key almost shed a tear myself just because it reminded me of a situation I experienced, you know, and it was so hard to go through, you know. And so I feel for Marissa. I think at the end of the day, like I said, do I think these two should have been together? Absolutely not. But I do think that Ramses knew very well that he was not going to be with her from the beginning, probably. And the fact that he was, instead of being honest, because this literally reminds me of a situation I was in where the person was not honest. I had to be the one to claw the honesty out of them. I had to be the one to leave them, right? And it's like, you notice them being distant, you notice them being withdrawn, you notice the lack of interest. And when you try to ask them, they don't say anything. I don't know. Ramses presents himself as this progressive, emotionally, mature and in tune person, and it's like, no, he's just as childish and immature as anyone. So it was really sad to watch. I really felt bad for Marissa, but she said it took her 6 months. She also did a response on TikTok last night, further going into her emotions, so I'll put it here.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert for Love is Blind season 7 finale. Came out today. If you have not seen it and you still want to see it and you don't want to be spoiled, keep on scrolling. I'll give you a second. Go ahead and scroll. If you're still here, you're gonna get spoilers, and don't be up in my comments about it or DMs. Okay, something I wanted to address that I am seeing like some discourse online about like just going through a breakup and begging someone to stay with you. It's very interesting because it made me really think about like what our dating culture is like today, where when someone in a relationship is expressing doubt or is unsure about something, they either bring it to the partner and the partner goes, okay, like, cool, if you don't know if you want to be with me, bye. And, there's that. Or you have, the person who's feeling the doubts is unsure, talks to other people about it, maybe works through it and is solid in the relationship and everything's fine. There's just different scenarios. Regardless, what I'm trying to say is, what did y'all expect from me? Like, or from anyone who is in this situation, or anyone going through a breakup. When you say you're committed to someone, you want to marry them and you love them and it's unconditional, when they come to you, when your partner comes to you with doubts or confusion, what do I do? Just high five the man and walk away? Or do I sit there and say, well, what's going on? Let's talk about this. You weren't feeling this way yesterday. What's going on? That is not begging someone to stay with them. Asking someone, are you sure, is not begging them to stay. It's saying, are you sure that you feel confident in this decision, or is it something you want to sleep on? It is not a begging. And if you think it is, I can't change your mind, but I just think it's fascinating because in today's society, we're always talking about, like, I want someone to commit. I want someone to be there for me. I want you to be my confidant, my ride and die. But then when you see someone doing that, people are really quick to judge and say, like, I would never. Well, one, would you ever go on TV and put your life, out like I did and be vulnerable? A lot of people wouldn't do that. And it's a hard thing, and like not everything was perfect, not everything's pretty, and I wasn't perfect, and I have room to grow and things like that. But at the end of the day, I just think it's important to keep in mind, like, if you're single and you're out there and you're trying to date, like, you don't have to beg someone to be with you. If they're telling you the words, like, I don't want to be with you, you gotta listen to what they're saying. But if you're with somebody who you love and they're coming to you with some doubts and confusions and they don't want to make a rash decision, I think it's completely fair to talk to them and try to reason with them. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a psychologist would tell me I'm freaking wrong, but that is my 2 cents on that. And so, yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the rest of the season and saw the beautiful weddings, and yeah, stay tuned.
Overall, a heartbreaking situation. I mean, that crying on the floor, just sobbing, it's tough. It's really, really tough. Marissa's sister also posted a TikTok of the behind the scenes after the breakup. And as you can see, her sister's there, her mom is there. So it was true that they were driving up for the wedding.
Turn it to a shrouded mystery. Now that we don't talk. Did you just record that? Hope it's nice where you are. You passed out, baby, was it over then? Is it over now?
I've been hypercritical of Ramses. I loved him. And then all of a sudden, the sex conversation with you guys happened. When you guys were having this conversation, was it as shocking to hear it out of his mouth as it seems to be as shocking for us to watch it?
The conversation was not as shocking in person. I was pretty quiet. That's because I was over here like wheels turning. I was trying to figure out like, what are you implying? Watching back, I will tell you, I was definitely shocked. I think that he didn't realize what he was saying.
Do you think it would be disingenuous for Ramses, when he does speak on this, for him to blame the edit?
I remember the conversation going one way and I remember feeling another way. So the conversation about birth control, for example, you aren't seeing that. We talked about vasectomy right falling into that, you know? So you don't see that type of context. I think he would probably bring that stuff up for sure.
I mean, that's fair. I guess I'm just more shocked that he sounded like a man who needed a woman to explain to him why he's not going to get as much action while you're on your period.
Well, I was pissed, to be honest. Like, as a woman, you're kind of conditioned at times to deal with guys like that, where guys are like, oh, I want to have sex. Like, you kind of, I don't know. I've experienced that multiple times. I think I was just like, oh great, it's just another guy wanting to be physically affectionate with me when I don't want to. I have an autoimmune disease that I was flaring at the time. I'm PMSing. I'm doing all these things, and here he is complaining about this. Mm-hmm. That's how I felt in the moment.
Whew, alrighty. Anyways, in other news, we do have Hannah's brother, Cade. If you remember, he was very adamant about letting us know that his sister can be mean. Well, he has decided to go clock Nick D in the comments. Let's play this. Now, Hannah's family, or I don't want to say Hannah's family, but Hannah and her brother, they have been going on like the prowl, talking about how Nick was actually saying that he didn't like her. Nick was saying awful things off camera. Supposedly, this is going to be addressed on the reunion. But anyway, they were really going on saying that Nick was saying a lot of things. Nick was saying he was not attracted to her off camera. So let's see. I'm going to keep it a stack. I always thought it was weird how calm Nick seemed during a lot of these scenes. I just can't imagine anybody taking what Hannah was giving and just sitting there and being like, okay. But I can definitely picture someone playing in our faces on camera and then acting totally different off camera. And this is not me saying that Hannah's not a mean person. Hannah's a nasty person. Let's put some of Hannah's TikToks.
And then I go and spoil it all by saying something stupid like,
you fucking everything that you fucking know. I turned into a boy into a fucking man. Every time I turn my back, it's another fucking neck.
Baby, this girl hasn't learned a thing. But anyway, also, Alex, she has been making a few TikToks as well. She lost 40 pounds. The body was T before and after. Okay, but she does look great.
and then I go and spoil it all by saying something stupid like,
I like to take my naps. There. I get tired really easily. I don't know what it is.
And she actually answered one of the biggest questions that she's been getting in the comments about her being tired. So I wanted to just pull this up and read it real quick, since a lot of people have been talking about how tired she is and asking this exact question. I've seen a lot of people on videos here ask that question. It says, Illy, or I love you, please don't be offended, but as an exhausted girly too, I was wondering if you've had blood work done. I feel like you and I have similar energy levels and I talked to my doctor about it. And she responded and said, she said, sorry. Someone's G the Bratz dolls responded and said, I'm glad you asked because I want to know if she's still as tired as she was before because she lost 40 pounds. And she said, yes, because I worked 3 jobs, LOL. We didn't know that, by the way. I feel like that was never discussed on the show, that she has 3 jobs, and that was a potential reason why she was napping and sleepy and had things to do. But yeah, a little clarification on Alex's end. She's also been in comments saying, watch the reunion, watch the reunion. It's not true what Tim tried to say on his story about her being out all night before meeting her family, his family. Watch the reunion. So she's claiming that that's going to be addressed on the reunion. I don't know. Anyways, though, that is all we have for today. We are at the end of this season, but we still have the reunion to go. If you made it to this point of the video, that means you like the video. So please consider liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Gets the videos out there, inspires me to keep creating. Make sure you have the bell on so you know when I always drop new videos. Thank you guys so much, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye!